Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the December workshop meeting of your Board of Trustees. To honor our nation's heroes, and especially to honor the men and women in uniform who serve and protect our community, please rise with us and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Fitzgerald, may we have the roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam President. Trustee Hansen?
Here.
Trustee Timmick?
Here.
Trustee Allen?
Here.
Trustee Rudolph?
Here.
Trustee Sifferman?
Here.
Trustee Tyrrell?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Does the trustee have any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to the Truth in Taxation public hearing concerning the 2018 village property tax levy. Clerk Fitzgerald, will you confirm that no one has left the room?
Confirmed.
And also, will you acknowledge the publication of the public notice in a local newspaper of this meeting?
Yes,
this
I
hearing?
acknowledge the notification was published in the Suburban Life on Wednesday, November 21st, 2018, and a copy is included in the packet.
Thank you. I'll turn the meeting over now to Village Manager Velkme and Director of Finance Turi for the presentation on the 2018 property tax levy.
Thank you, President Gallagher. But I am going to turn this over to Director of Finance, Grace Turi.
Thank you, President Gallagher and Board of Trustees and Manager Velkme. For your review, I have presented for you the 2018 levy. There we go. The total levy request for 2018 is $8,602,935. The village's levy is $6,906,788, and the Thomas Ford Library levy request is $1,696,147. The total increase requested is 7.3% increase higher than last year's. The village's increase is 4%, which should generate approximately $265,000, of which $115,000 will be allocated to the police pension fund. The CPI for 2018 levy is 2.1, and the estimated recapture of new growth is estimated at 1.9, giving us a 4% increase. It must be noted that any overestimation of new growth will be automatically reduced by Cook County, so that our increase can only be supported by whatever is the EAV allowed at that point in time. The property tax allocation of what we will receive will fund operating levy of 58%, debt service at 18%, the IMRF and fire pension at 5%, and the police pension levy will receive 19% of the levy. This slide is familiar. You've seen this last year, and it basically repeats the same information as last year, is that the village receives about less than 12% of the total property tax bill that a resident receives. The levy is scheduled to be adopted at the December 17th meeting and is usually filed by the county by the last Tuesday in December, which will be December 25th. So I believe the extension dates moved to the 26th. Is that correct?
Correct.
If there are any questions regarding the levy, I can answer those right now. Otherwise, I'd like to give the levy presentation to Ted Bo Davis with the Thomas Ford Library.
Does any board member have a question regarding this portion of the public hearing? No, then we'll turn it over to Mr. Bo Davies.
Thank you. I'm Ted Bo Davis. I'm the director of the library. With me also is Mary Greska, the president of the Library Board of Trustees. We are here this evening to present the library's levy request. On November 27th, the Library Board of Trustees voted to approve the budget and levy request for fiscal year 2019. You have a handout that outlines the levy and summary budget. For fiscal year 2019, the library operating levy is $1,202,768. Expenditures from this fund include salaries, benefits, insurance, supplies, media, and a contingency. The library building and maintenance levy this year is $163,232, which, as you know, represents 0.02% of anticipated EAV as stipulated by law. Expenditures from this fund include contractual services, building supplies, furniture, and a contingency. I should note that building expenses related to our renovation are not included in this fund. The IMRF levy for fiscal year 2019 is $62,000. And new this year, our bond levy is $268,147 for repayment of general obligation bonds as approved by the voters last year. So the total library levy without the bond is $1,428,000, which represents an increase of 3.36% over last year. And our total levy, including the bond, is $1,696,147. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question,
Yes.
sir. You indicate that $20,000 is added for possible new growth. Can you give examples of what that items would be in the new growth?
So we're estimating the EAV. If the EAV is as high as we hope it is, we'll get that 20,000. But typically, in some years, due to our limiting rate, they shave off a little bit, and so we put it.
Thank you.
It's the same as for us, correct?
That's
Rick?
correct.
Going in optimistic and,
Right.
Right.
yeah, right.
Because if you don't, you lose it, essentially.
Since I have the floor, I just wanted to let the trustees and the community know that our construction project is starting on January 7th. The library will be closed for 11 days until January 18th. Then we will reopen and stay open, business as usual, through the end of May when we hope to have our project completed. The information is on our website, including drawings and a day-by-day of our schedule as it happens during the project.
And that's being, not from the levy, but from the bond
That's
that we hit, that the voters put in the bond
Correct.
earlier in the year.
Correct. Correct.
No?
Good luck with your
Thank you.
project.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving on to item B. Or is that the entire presentation for the property tax levy for 2018? Okay. Are there any comments or questions from board members? No? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Or any public comment on this? Okay. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to place. Oh, item D, the Director Turi, general discussion of the fiscal year 2019 budget.
I believe we have to close the levy hearing first.
Oh, that's,
It's incorporated within the tax levy, just public hearing, just for, not to discuss the budget in full, but just to make any references to it in relation to the tax levy. If there's
Okay.
none, and if you're going to cover it, then just say none, and we can close the public hearing.
Well, none, then we can.
That would be the next item to do. Go to this item is going to go on.
Okay.
The ordinances are going to go on the next agenda for action.
so I will entertain a motion to place the ordinance regarding the tax levy on the December 17th Village Board meeting agenda for final action and approval.
So.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We will put that then on the December 17th meeting agenda. Is there a motion to close this public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and return to the agenda for the December 3rd regular board meeting.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We now move on to that portion of the meeting where we open the meeting up to the public to address the board. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who wishes to speak with the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to our next public hearing, which concerns the 2019 operating budget. I once again will hand it over to Manager Velkman.
And once again, I will ask Director Turi to do her presentation on the fiscal year 2019 proposed budget. Also, in your packets, you had a budget summary that I sent to you. So if you can, and I have a copy of that at your dais right now, too. So.
Thank you. Director Turi.
Thank you. Director Velke, Manager Velke and staff is pleased to present the FY 2019 budget. The budget process started in August and continued to today. We found, actually trustee Allen found 2 omissions, and we corrected those. And so we redistributed the FY 2019 recap, and you'll find that on at your place. That will be discussed, included in this hearing. Presented tonight is a budget that includes 15 separate funds, which is consistent with prior years. No new funds have been opened or closed. For your consideration, the total budget is $31,501,180, with the corresponding revenue of over $32 million. This slide is revenue sources of all funds. And you can note that the largest source of revenue is our property taxes, which will demonstrate that our housing stock is one of our largest and our greatest asset. Secondly, you'll see the other highlighted yellow is the water and sewer charges at about $4,500,000 annually. And then we have also referenced 2 line items, which are the IEPA loan proceeds and the general obligation referendum bond, which is the second of the 3 bond issues that we will be issuing off of the 2016 referendum. Those 2 line items represent the 2 construction costs that will be incurring next year. Expenditures on all funds will be all the expenditures funded for all 15 funds. And you can see the largest category of expenditures is salary and benefits at $8.3 million, followed by contractual services, which is what we use to pay for all operating services within the village, followed closely by water and sewer capital, which next year, for 2019, will be a very productive year for capital. And then it's followed by roadway capital at $2,200,000. The general fund, which is our largest fund, for next year, we have revenue at 4% increase in property taxes, but we will have no new fees, and we have not increased any existing fees. On the expenditure side, salary and wages were increased at 2.5% based on merit. The health insurance increase was 3%, which was very favorable, and the police pension contribution was increased by 12.8%. We also created a new program called the Tollway Program, which will account for all unfunded expenditures related to the expansion of I-294. This slide shows the revenue sources for the general fund. Again, our largest component would be from property taxes, and followed secondly by sales tax, which in the last several years we've seen a pleasant increase. Last year we're 2018 over 2017, we're seeing an 8% increase in sales tax. Income tax, which is a local government distributed fund, at $1.2 million is really dependent on the economy, and whatever the legislators do to balance their budget will impact that line item. In total, we're expecting over $11,845,000 in income in revenue for the general fund. General fund expenditures, again, salaries and benefits are the largest component, followed by contractual services. I do want to point out that the contribution to police pension at $1.3 million is based on an actuarial determination and is part of the levy, as we talked about in a previous hearing. This slide is a combination of general fund and capital improvement fund, and it's simply there to demonstrate that the general operations, exclusive of capital and water, are about $12.5 million annually to provide the basic services that the village provides. This slide is to present what we're spending in the capital improvement fund, and it's broken down by the department as well as the type of expenditure. The 2 items of note on this slide are in the municipal services, up to $307,000. There's about $90,000 that we are allocating to repair and rehabilitate the structure of the historical water tower. We value the asset, and we are using special purpose funds to make our improvements. The other item that is in the fire and emergency medical services is our mandated replacement of our self-contained breathing apparatus. And I believe if Director Kenny, you want to elaborate a little bit more on that purchase?
Certainly, I will, Director Turge. So the National Fire Protection Association is the governing board that covers all of our equipment, whether it's response vehicles, our gear, and in this essence, it's our air packs. Every 15 years, those air packs are required to be replaced. Every 5 years, they're evaluated, and the NFPA comes up with new safety standards. You can't go back and retrofit these. So we were aware of this and started 4 years ago with twice writing our own grants to the federal government to try and get assistance to pay for that program. Those were denied. Last year, we decided to try and go with a consolidated grant where we went in with Clarendon Hills and Hinsdale. We were denied. We just submitted in September one more time for a grant. The deadline to replace all of our air packs is May of 2020. So you will see this is half the cost of eventually where we're going to end up needing to go if we don't get the grant. We have, I think, made a really strong argument that this is what the grant application looks like, that why we need it, that we are a paid-on-call department based on Director Turi's breakdown of how revenue comes into the village. We feel strongly we've made a good argument. Can I promise you that's going to occur? I don't know. We will know by sometime in the late spring to early summer if that comes through. If it does, the village's contribution is only $10,000 to pay for the entire project. So we have worked diligently. We have now waited till the last minute. Director Turi's done an outstanding job with there's so much information we have to give them economically to fight for it, including I'm on the list of grant reviewers. So I went through our grant and offered to go out there in January if they needed any other grant reviewers. I haven't heard anything back. They probably don't want me out there at that point. But that's really what that expenditure is. We don't have a choice. And it truly is the most life-saving piece of equipment that we wear to protect our own personnel. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have about that.
Well, this is an unfunded mandate as far as I can tell, and thank you for repeatedly requesting this grant. Anything that we as a board can do to support that, writing letters to our congressman, please let us know. And
We'll do that.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to move on to the roadway fund and the roadway projects. This is a map of the projected constructions for next year. The lines in blue are the concrete projects, and the lines in yellow are the asphalt resurfacing. The concrete reconstruction will be funded by the roadway referendum bond proceeds, and the reconstruction will be funded by the MFT state allocation. Water and sewer. During the course of the did I say that out loud? During the course of the year, staff has worked on a 5-year plan that outlined capital projects, changes to operating expenses due to the maintenance of the reverse osmosis plant process, and future debt service to fund capital projects. Also reviewed was the adequacy of the water sewer rate to support the activity of the next 5 years. The Finance and Public Works and Water Committees, along with the Infrastructure Commission, reviewed the plan. At the last minute meeting, it was recommended that in order to support the 5-year plan, the water and sewer rate should be increased from $12 per thousand gallons to $14 per thousand gallons, and the capital maintenance fee should be increased from $5 per billing cycle to $7.50. The FY 2019 budget that's presented here includes those increases effective January 1st. For FY 2019, water is allocated as such. The largest component supporting operations with the balance equally funding debt service and capital. That allocation for operating expenses, debt service, capital will shift from year to year as the capital amount fluctuates and as the village determines to establish a capital reserve to cover emergencies and unforeseen occurrences in future years. Capital projects for water and sewer are segregated into 2 categories, the IEPA funded and non-IEPA funded. The IEPA funded projects totaling $4,466,792 are not the total cost of the projects, but what we budget for next year to be spent. Our budgets are based on a cash basis, and we are allocating what will be spent next year. The 3 major projects out of the IEPA loans are going to be creating well number 5, which is divided into 3 components, which is drilling, pumping equipment, and then transmission main. Painting to standpipe, I always forget which one is that.
Garden
Is that,
Market.
Garden Market.
Garden Market. And then Clausen Avenue reconstruction, which is done in tandem with the roadway reconstruction. So we have funds for the surface and we have funds for the water main underneath. Associated with those three projects are design engineering and inspection engineering for all three. On the non-IPA projects, we have sewer projects for three of them, which are the Ridgewood Oak Detention Basin, which was budgeted in 2018 but was deferred to 2019. We are budgeting $370,000. Over time, those dollars will be reimbursed through a special service area tax. The terms and the interest rate has yet to be determined. We have some roadway projects budgeted $125,000. We also have a Central Avenue sewer, which is budgeted but is still to be determined if the funding grant is going to be awarded to us. If the grant is not awarded, that Central Avenue sewer will probably not occur. And then we have other various projects which are maintenance in nature, if I believe is correct. Lastly, I do want to present the fire and police pension funding levels. And as you'll note, we had a little bit of an uptick in police pension, but that's based on 2017's results of the investment portfolio. I believe that 2017 results also was used to actually determine what was going to be the contribution in 2018. We will be submitting to our actuary the results of 2018's, and I believe that's going to cost us a little bit extra with the results of the market being so poor this year. The fire pension is pretty stable at about 88%. There's only one beneficiary in that fund, and we will continue to fund at the regular rate that we've been doing for the last several years. If there are, and finally, I just want to thank Manager Velkme for her guidance and the staff for their participation in the process. We believe this is a fair and representative budget for the level of service that we provide. Any questions in regards to what was presented?
Any questions or comments by the board?
I just had one quick one. What rate of return are we assuming on the police pension?
6.75.
6.75, consistent with what we say
Yes.
to the actuary? Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? I know that with regard to the water rate specifically, the Finance Committee has looked at that, the Public Works and Water has looked at it, and then jointly they looked at it, and the entire board was present. So this is something that is necessary for critical infrastructure improvements to ensure quality water or clear water to our residents and keep the reverse osmosis plant running at state-of-the-art speed as it is now. So we do not take that increase lightly, but feel that this is important to keep the waters and sewer fund, an enterprise fund, independent of the other funds. Any other comments? Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Please.
Question. Tom Fronoff, I just moved to town a few years ago after spending 50+ years in LaGrange. And I live right. Sorry, could you?
You need to go stand at the podium.
That's where the mic is.
I'm sorry, I was just.
The mic is right here up.
Oh, I see. I see.
Sorry.
I'm accustomed to speaking in the theater where I don't need additional help. I said, my name is Tom Fronoff. I live across from Field Park School. My question is in particular of interest about any reconstruction to the roadway on Hillgrove Avenue from the new well area that is behind the school. I believe that's where you're putting it in. I saw them marking the street a few months ago in anticipation of possibly needing to dig up the roadway. I was curious. I didn't see anything on the map you had there about any reconstruction to Hillgrove.
Director
Try to answer
Super?
that one.
Yeah.
So the project, what you saw, the markings that you saw out there were probably related to survey work. Part of that was for the transmission main from Field Park to the water treatment plant. The actual disruption to Hillgrove itself will be relatively minor. We're going to do a directional or mechanical boring process. So we're not going to actually have to excavate the entire section of Hillgrove. There will be certain portions where we have what's known as a receiving pit, where the pipe will be kind of put into the ground and then run horizontally. Most of that will be towards the southern end of Hillgrove Avenue, near some of the angled parking spaces over there. So there should be minimal impact to actual Hillgrove itself.
Thank you.
Will the street be closed?
We will have, yes, there will be at least a partial closure as we're doing the directional boring because the equipment is quite large based on the size of the pipe we're using.
For what kind of time, sorry?
How long do you think it'll
Yeah,
be
how
closed and
long?
when?
It would be daily closures during construction hours.
Okay.
And typically partial, so depending on the work happening, we could have one lane of traffic still going. When we're working in those angled parking areas, we might have to do partial closures on the angled parking, and we may be able to leave some of the both lanes open. We're still working on the actual details and scheduling of all that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Not related to that.
Well, this is your opportunity. Anything? Yes, there is a Santa.
The only other question I've got, I'm sure you've all heard before, and that has to do, I don't know if this is really worth bothering to bring up, because I don't know if it's going to change at all, but it has to do with something I've noticed, not just in this community, but in other years, in other communities, and that has to do with the exorbitantly high, call it a fee, it's a penalty, a fine for people that get tickets from the red light cameras. $100, it seems excessively high for the minor violations. Given the research I've been doing lately, which is granted not a lot, but from what I've been learning, reading through the internet and checking other areas, and even speaking with some police officers, including those in this town and other towns, it seems that a lot of the violations are for people who turn right on red.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems $100 is excessive. I started bringing it up, I don't know what steps I would take in the future so far as organizing people to protest against that high figure. It seems a much more minor amount would be appropriate.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, moving on with regard to the adoption of the 2019 budget. At our next meeting, we will vote on adopting that budget to get us ready for the year 2019.
We need a motion.
Yes, so we'll move on to a motion to place the ordinance approving the Village of Western Springs fiscal year 2019 operating annual budget for the fiscal year 2019, beginning January 1st and ending December 31st, 2019, on the agenda of next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Now, are there any amendments to the fiscal year 2018 budget or ordinance? No. So we can skip over that. Is there a motion to close this public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are now back in the workshop portion of our meeting, and we will consider the agenda items from our specific committees within the board. First up is Trustee Allen, Public Works and Water.
Thank you, President Gallagher. No real report, just wanted to give everyone a heads up that the Infrastructure Committee staff and Public Works and Water will be looking through the 2016 referendum and kind of revisiting some of the estimates that were used for construction costs, as well as including now the design and the new inspection engineering costs, and trying to look at what in aggregate that means and what impact it may have over the 9 or 10 years remaining on that program.
It's the roadway referendum that our residents approved.
Correct. That was approved in November of 2016. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a prudent idea. Thank you. Moving on to Properties and Recreation Committee, Trustee Hansen.
Thank you, President Gallagher. I have no report tonight. We did
Thank
not
you.
meet.
Thank you. Finance Committee, Trustee Rudolph.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Just to reiterate, the tax levy information that was presented by Director Turry tonight and also by the library, just that will be the ordinances on our next omnibus and our next meeting.
Thank you.
And also just of note, and I guess echoing to your comments, President Gallagher, about the water rates, that it is not something that we take lightly, and I look forward to our village communication to our residents, helping to explain those rates. And also, I think it's important to show how we compare to other nearby communities, so that our residents understand kind of where we sit overall. So look forward to that.
Right, and also to show why it's important to have that increase to
Yep, absolutely.
where the dollars go.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to public health.
Wait, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, trustee Allen, please.
So I was waiting all evening to talk about these, the ordinances about the, my term, pre-funding some of the bonds that are outstanding. Is that a correct term? First of all, kudos to really staff and everyone involved in being able to get to that spot to pre-fund it. I guess I just had a couple questions. I just want to make sure I understood it correctly. As I read it, it was the 2012 B water and sewer that did not have a huge amount remaining. I think it was a few $100,000. And so we're going to pay that off early? Is that what it means when we say we no longer need it in the tax rate?
Those bonds are alternate revenue source, so they are not going to have a levy to pay them off. We are using water and sewer rate, the sewer charges to pay those off. So every year you have to abate the payment so it doesn't appear on your tax bill.
Okay, well, and then the 2015A,
Same
which
thing.
the GO bond?
Same thing.
Well, wait, I guess I'm confused. So we're lowering the rate for residents for that? Because when we pass these, we initially have to bump up the rate?
If they're general obligation bonds, then we bump up the rate. If they're general obligation alternate revenue source, then we're saying to the public, we are going to issue these bonds, but we're going to use an alternate revenue source to pay the debt service. And for those two bonds, one is the water and sewer rate charges, and the other one is we pledged sales tax from the general fund to pay for those, for the other ones, 215A.
And was that the 15A, it looked like the rate was 2.2 to 2.45-ish rate on it. What was the rate we were paying on the 1 million that we recently got for the rolling stock
I
vehicles?
believe it was right under 3%.
Would it make more sense then to pay off to prepay the 1 million that we just got versus this because the other one has a higher rate?
You can't prepay the general obligation bonds because you made a commitment to your debt holders that you're going to pay them over a certain period of time. So those have to stay in place. But yes, it would make sense to pay off the higher interest rate note if we have the ability to do so, yes.
Oh, so we're not actually prepaying any of these bonds. So
No.
my first comment, I just need to completely strike. So I
Yes,
misread
you're
it.
not prepaying, you're just taking those two bonds off the levy rolls, which you have to do on an annual basis.
Thank you for the clarification. No further questions.
Thank you. And we'll move on to public health and safety. Trustee Sifferman.
Madam President, colleagues, there are two matters that appear for our review and discussion here this evening that come by way of the Public Health and Safety Committee. The first is an item that was identified by a resident who, and this is Val Price, who in September contacted the committee with a matter that of concern and safety at the crossing of Hillgrove and Central, requesting this matter be investigated and looked into, which was an item that appeared on the Transportation and Safety Commission agenda on November 20th, taking a look at that intersection there where the presence of a crosswalk improvement that could identify, I think, improve the safety of that intersection for pedestrians in particular who are crossing Hillgrove heading toward south and toward the tracks. This matter resulted in the commission sending this matter to the Public Health and Safety Committee for review. And we met last week as a committee and felt that it was a matter that could be improved with the implementation and the installation of one of those portable stop signs that are similar to the ones that are around Clawson and Hillgrove. And it is, we believe, and the committee believes that there is a merit in this, and we're asking that this matter be advanced for approval. There's a draft ordinance amendment that's in our packets, and we think that this should advance to, for adoption at the omnibus item next meeting.
We'll put it on the omnibus. Thank you.
Just one quick question on that in terms
Sure.
of the cost of the signs and where the money will come from?
Chief?
To Director Super, they're nominal costs, correct, Matt?
Yeah, you're
The
talking
signs?
approximately under $1,000 for signage.
Is it temporary?
So they're just like the ones on Burlington and Clausen,
Right.
is what I heard? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Under.
And the value of those signs are, increased more than the cost of the items. Great. So the next item that I want to discuss and bring to your attention is the notice that comes to us by way of Chief Buds with this notice of a public safety awareness message about the holiday warnings and advice he's giving all of us to consider. At this very busy time of year, sometimes we often forget about some of the safety measures that we need to concentrate on and protect us. So he's put together a memorandum and a notice that will appear on the website and the Western Springs Facebook and Twitter pages that cover a variety of areas where it would be good for us to concentrate on. Vehicle safety and security tips, shopping safety tips, creating a better safety measures within the household. And one of the items that I think is very important is the social hosting and driving tips. I think we would be prudent for us to consider the safety of our guests as we host parties, and looking for ways to provide alternative transportation for those that may need some assistance in getting home, but also recognizing the need to serve beverages that are available for all party goers that include non-alcoholic beverages. And then, once again, a warning to never drive when having consumed drink. He also is encouraging our participation for residents and businesses to join the Neighborhood Watch program. And that's an important crime-stopping item that would help all of us and the neighborhood. So that's one of the items that I wanted to make mention and bring to this board's attention. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Sifferman. I did want to thank Val Price for taking the time to write into the board. We rely on our residents to point out situations that they feel may be dangerous and need our attention. So, thank you. Moving on to general government, Trustee Simmons.
Sorry.
Oh, sure.
I'd like to reiterate Trustee Sifferman's comments. Thank you, Chief Buds, for getting it out there. One thing just to also highlight to make sure our residents are aware, we get a few identity theft reports per month from residents. And so there were some additional safety tips to kind of consider on that. He has in here already immediately report if your credit card is lost or stolen. It's a good practice to review your bank and credit card statements frequently. Also, maybe you didn't think about this one, review explanation of benefits from your health provider just to make sure that any charges on there are for services you actually had. And my personal favorite is to place a credit freeze with the three main agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. It's almost free or a nominal cost, but it prevents or blocks others from accessing your credit file. So anyway, thanks again for putting that out there.
Thank you. General government, Trustee Timothy.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Just two items to cover this evening, and these are items we had discussed just prior in our general government meeting earlier this evening. The first is an update on our refuse and recycling contract efforts. So we've been in discussions with the current provider, Republic, around an extension of the existing contract that would allow us to explore our options. We have come to an agreement with them on a one-year extension. We had hoped to maybe get something a little bit shorter. It just did not work out. But we believe that this will give us ample time now to complete the process. There will be a slight adjustment in fees from Republic during that year tied specifically to recycling. So the situation has flipped, as I think many people are aware, whereas recycling once was lucrative for the collectors in terms of that they could reap some value from what they collect, and now it's actually the opposite, and they're having to pay to dispose of that. So we will see an adjustment there, and hopefully as we work through the process with either Republic or any of the other participants in the RFQ, we can see a recoup of that through, a switch to carts versus bags and some other things along those lines. But we'll work on that. Relative to the RFQ itself, we're looking to include upwards of 4, possibly more, if we can get folks to have shown interest in participating in the RFQ. Looking to get that out here year-end, early part of January, and targeting to have things wrapped up within April so the board could take action on a new contract. So things are moving along, I think, quite well here.
Thank you.
And then one last item, relatively minor, but the District 101 Band and Orchestra Association has put forward a request to hold a raffle, fairly small in nature. I think there's a $250 grand prize. Ticket sales will be in February with a March 12th drawing. The committee made the decision that we found this acceptable and would want to move this forward for the omnibus, and as per usual, waive the application fee for them. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to planning and zoning, Trustee Terrell.
Thank you, President Gallagher. We met tonight regarding well number 5. As we've discussed this lengthy discussions, the property is zoned R2 family residential, and the R2 zoning classification designates municipal utilities and services. You need a conditional use. So the village is the applicant. The village is going to request a conditional use permit for this property. What's anticipated, besides the structure of the well, which I understand to be pretty much underground, is we will need for the electrical conduits and other things of that nature, a structure to be put on that site, on the village's property. It's a 12 by 20 structure, roughly brick, Marty, and we're not going to fence it in. These are just some concepts that will be thrown out there. Am I missing anything of what we want to put on that site by the conditional use permit?
No, other than that, just restoring the property around it, grass around it, and possibly some landscaping in that area.
Okay, the building will, or the structure will just be for the housing of the components inside, and we're going to pass that on to the Plan Commission. They're meeting on December 20th with our recommendation. So other than that, I would have no further report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Terrell. Moving on to my report. This morning I had the pleasure to attend Congressman Lipinski's Senior Citizen of the Year Award breakfast. Along with me was Communications Manager Selman Cisak, and we were there to honor and support our very own Sarah Ann Milano, who was recognized as one of 17 exemplary senior citizens within the Congressman's 3rd District. The Congressman said that they receive hundreds of applications every year for this honor, and only 17 were granted today. And it's quite an honor. For those of you who don't know, Sarah Ann was our first female president of the village board, and her term started in 1997. And under her watch, she was responsible for helping with the rehabilitation of the train station, which I think we all can agree is a beautiful structure. And she was also integral in getting the funding necessary for the pedestrian underpass over near Clausen Avenue. And that's a structure that we can enjoy. Not only is it beautiful, but it's a safe way to cross the tracks for our students that attend Field Park that live south of the tracks. So every time you go by there, please think of Sarah Ann and her efforts. Also, the Congressman's father, William Lipinski, was the one who gave us the money to complete that, so we thank him as well. On November 28th, There was our village-wide caucus meeting. Many of our trustees were in attendance. The caucus is a single party for the residents. All voting age residents of the village are automatically members of this party. The reason we do this is that we have a single party and board members can join their boards unencumbered by party affiliations. This year, nominated and approved were 3 candidates for the library board: Cheryl Hansen, Meg Yickey, and Jean Carroll. There were also 3 nominated and approved for the park board: incumbent Doug Stoltz, Meg Blake, and Martin Legler. And finally, for the village board, also 3 members, 3 nominees: Nicole Chen, Al Fink, and James John. These were all approved at the caucus party, and they will go on the caucus slate on the ballot for the election in April. It's bittersweet to mention the village board because that means we have 3 very qualified trustees now going off the village board. So I can't say that I'm looking forward to that moment in time, although I am looking forward to welcoming 3 new people. On November 29th, I attended a town hall meeting in Willowbrook. It was hosted by Willowbrook, but really run by the US EPA. This is in regard to the Sterigenics ongoing issue with ethylene oxide. In a nutshell, the US EPA said that more testing is necessary before they can determine the risk. The initial tests were faulty in that they did not rule out other contaminants when they tested that air quality. So they have to go back and test the air again. They will then assess the data, and then they will return to Willowbrook with the results and an action plan once the threat is quantified, and that is projected to happen in the first quarter of 2019. I also wanted to mention that the Green Team, who is responsible for our styrofoam collection the first Saturday of every month, is expanding their collection efforts to include burnt out or broken Christmas lights and strings for the holiday season. So they will have boxes at the library and also at True Value, and I believe Village Manager Velkme is working on getting a box right here at Village Hall too, so that we can defer those items from landfill. And you can plan everything but the weather, and so the WSBA had to cancel the Winter Wonderland next Saturday. I know there were a lot of disappointed children, although they did move Santa from the wet and rainy Tower Green to a dry church, so those who had tickets to see Santa could still go see Santa. Santa will be at the Tower Green, weather permitting, next Saturday from 10 to 2. And I also want to once again thank our Public Works crews who came in over the weekend in order to clear out our inlets. The inlets were clogged with a confluence of snow, rain, leaves, and our streets were flooded as a result. So thank you to the Public Works crews who came in on their off days to get those cleared. And then December 10th, Congressman Lipinski is hosting a meeting for commuters and train riders to address representatives from the BNSF and Metra regarding recent problems and issues on their lines. That meeting will be held at 7 p.m. at McClure Junior High. And it's open to the public. And that concludes my report. Manager Velkme?
Thank you, President Gallagher and members of the board. I do have 3 reports tonight. One is the most up-to-date construction report for Johnson Avenue, and this is from Casey Biernacki. The majority of concrete items have been completed. The only remaining pavement to be completed is the reconstruction of the intersection of Johnson and 45th, and that's been delayed because of the ComEd utility pole issues. That intersection will be poured tomorrow, and Wednesday should be fully reopened next Monday. Residents on Johnson currently have full access to their driveways, and restoration of the parkway will occur this spring. The parkways will be regraded for the winter to remove any trip hazards. When it comes to Lawn Avenue, the roadway is completed and reopened for public use. Asphalt work at Elm and Lawn in Burlington will occur this week. And the resurfacing of Post Office Drive may occur this week, but we could potentially be delayed until spring because of the weather. Businesses on Lawn Avenue have parking and sidewalk access restored. The east and west alleys on Lawn will be available for delivery truck access later this week. And the southwest side at Burlington and Lawn will be poured tomorrow or Wednesday, which will close out all sidewalk work on Lawn. All landscaping work, sodding, brick pavers, tree planting, kiosk foundation planters, and etc. will occur in the spring. And the landscaping areas for now will be filled with some compacted stone for the winter. So that is for Lawn Avenue and in Johnson. And then with regard to the leaf pickup program, the Village's Public Works Department is doing one final round this week. They were in Field Park today, and all leaves should have been at the curb or on the parkway. And then later on this week, a street sweeper will be out and to clean up all the remaining debris that's out there, so to make our streets look nice. And the tollway noise study. I finally received the tollway noise study. I did receive it on Friday, but unfortunately I was unable to open it. It is a very large file. There's a lot of information in there, and this afternoon we finally did, we opened it and we printed it out because there's just so much information in there. The noise study itself is over 300 pages. Wow. And so we're going to try to post it online once we try to figure out how to best so that people can access all the information. I've not had a chance to look at it yet, so I'm sure that we will have a lot of comment on that, and hopefully we'll have a public meeting on that too.
Did they offer an executive summary on that report?
Not on the, they do have one for Western Springs that we have to go over, so, but it's very short, too short. But the actual tollway, the noise study is over 300 pages.
And covers what, the whole length of the?
The whole length, yes. Yes. And then they also have the tollway policy on noise walls and so forth, and that's a lengthy document also. So there's a lot of information in there. Okay. And if you'd like a hard copy, I can get it for you too.
Ooh, I don't want 300 pages.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, and how are we? Are you going to? You're going to put it on? You're going to try to put it on the website?
Yes, we'll see what we can put on there. So we'll have Director Schramm is out of the country this week.
Okay.
So probably next week we'll be able to put it up there.
Okay, I think some kind of a summary would be helpful
Yes.
if that's possible. But more importantly, would be hopefully early in the new year if we can get a public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, and if we can, if our website supports uploading such a large document, then residents can peruse the entire thing.
We'll figure out a way to get it up there.
Definitely a summary would help too,
Right.
but then they can dive in deeper if they choose to, so.
Yeah, or when posting it, if we can say that we're hoping
Yes.
to have a public hearing to help all of us to digest that
Exactly.
300 pages
There's a lot
versus
there.
just putting that out there as
Right.
Well,
here's the
if
information.
the file format is odd or difficult, can we also put a couple printed copies at the library like we've done?
Oh, yes, we can.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Good point, yeah. Okay.
And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Village Attorney Jerusik?
No report tonight.
Thank you. In that case, is there any other before we move on? No, then I'll entertain a motion to recess to closed session.
I'll make a motion to recess the closed session for the purpose of discussion of collective negotiating matters between the village and its employees or their representatives or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please. Yes. May I have a roll call, please? Clerk Fitzgerald.
Certainly, Madam President. Trustee Hansen?
Aye.
Trustee Timick?
Aye.
Trustee Allen?
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph?
Aye.
Trustee Sipperman?
Aye.
Trustee Tyrrell?
Aye.
All present.
Thank you. Okay, so we have now recessed to closed session. When we return to open session, we may have a brief report on the items that we discussed in closed session, but there will be no action taken tonight. So good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this meeting.